Appreciate you being here. I know it's cold out. And standing by the fire probably feel pretty good, but you're real troopers, real patriots. So we're glad you're here. You've got a great speaker tonight, and you really enjoy listening to Cathy. But we're going to call the meeting to order and get started here. And at this time, I'd like Maurice Wood, if you'd come and lead us in a prayer.
Shall we all please stand? Let us pray. Our Father and our God, we give you praises. Lord, we thank you. We thank you for this day and this opportunity. Father, we ask in the name of Jesus that you continue to give us the light that we might follow in the direction that we should go. Father, we thank you for providing us with this organization here and giving them the wisdom to go out and find the speakers to come in and to educate us about the things that we should know and need to know. Father, we ask for blessings upon all our elected officials here, state, and the nation. Father, we ask that you protect our military folk wherever they are. Return them safely home. Lord, we ask that this meeting tonight might go well in the way that you would have to go. Lord, we just ask these blessings in the mighty name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. You join us, please, in the pledge to our flags.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And our Texas flag.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Now, I think I got around the room. I see a few that I didn't get to shake hands with, but I will before the night's over with. But my name is Don Poe. I'm president of the Hood County Tea Party. I get to stand up here and talk, and my wife does all the work. So just so you know, Ring does all the work. But we do thank you for being here, and I'll get around and visit with you before we get out of here tonight. At this time, I would like to recognize all of our veterans that are here tonight. Would you please stand? We certainly appreciate your service. And the elected officials that we have with us tonight, would y'all please stand? Okay. There's Katie Lang back on the camera back there. She's our county clerk, and Mike Lang is our constable out in our part of the country, out around Acton and Decker, actually a big territory out there. So we're really proud they're here tonight. And we've got city council person sitting right over here, Rose Myers. She's a firecracker on that city council, let me tell you. She does a great job. We're really proud of her. We don't live in the city.
We've got two visitors from Hill County too.
Yes, I met these ladies when they come in. Would y'all please stand? We'd love it. One of the ladies lives south of Hillsboro a little ways, and the other lady lives in Covington. So they had a nice little drive coming over tonight. We really appreciate you guys being there tonight. I think you'll really enjoy this meeting. You know, we've got a time right now where we've talked to everyone, especially in the last few meetings, about if you would like to be able to register people to vote, to go down to the annex. They've had one class or two classes. Had two classes, and they have one more class coming up on the 25th, March 25th. It takes about 30 minutes max probably to do this, and then you're able to go and register people to vote. You'll get a packet, something like this, and these are the voter registration cards, and she will go over all of this information with us. And the reason I'm bringing this up is we have, I'm gonna call her Cricket, that's the way I know her better than anything. It's Cricket, but was here with us tonight, and she's gonna make a little talk. She's gonna tell you about some things that are happening, or we think is gonna happen, about the districts or the precincts. So Cricket, you'll come on up here.
I'm not good with microphones, so we'll see how this goes. Thank you for having me. I'm the election administrator for Hood County. I'm Cricket Miller. My real name is Janice, but I go by Cricket. Talk to you about vote centers. Everybody in the county in the state is trying to go to vote centers, and it is a wonderful thing. What it is on election day, you can go to any polling location and vote. You do not have to go to your home precinct. We have so many people that come up to Annex 1 on election day to vote there because that's where they vote. Well, normally you vote early there. On election day, you do not normally vote there. And we turned over 300 people away last time. And last time, if you'll remember, it was cold and it was raining. And now, did those people go and vote? I don't know. Odds are most of them went on home and said, forget it. So we're going to keep it where everybody votes. When you do the vote centers, though, you have to cut down your number of polling locations. We have 15 polling locations now. We have to come down to 10. And we've decided upon those. We had a committee that came upon the ones that we wanted to have. And then we have to take it to Commissioner's Court, and they approved it, and then I have to apply it to the Secretary of State. And that's where we're at right now. They got it last week, so they know me. I've already called several times and said, hey, when are we going to know? I want to know. But as soon as we know, then we're going to come back to all these different groups and meetings and talk to you and let you know that it is a for sure thing. As of right now, we're back to the regular old precincts. But we're planning on doing it in November of 2015. So hopefully we'll get the word out to you by then. But it will be good. You'll just have to go to any of the polling locations. You can vote by close to work, close to church, close to home, wherever you want to vote. And it's going to be a really good thing. I don't know if anybody has questions about the vote centers? Yes, sir?
Like if we're down in Fort Aransas, we can vote
No,
down
you have to stay in Hood County. That's the only thing. It has to be Hood County registered voters, and you have to stay in Hood County. That one I can't help you on, but yes, it has to be in Hood County. So it'll help wherever you vote in our Hood County. You will get your ballot. It's just like early voting. So if you're actually in the city, you're still going to get your city ballot. If you're in precinct JP3, you're still going to get that ballot wherever you're at. So it's just like early voting, but it's on election day. Anyway, I just want to come and help make everybody aware of it and that it's coming, hopefully. Yes, Tony?
So how are they going to control a person from going from one to the other?
Good question. All of our poll books will be live, so they're Wi-Fi connected. And when you come into one, we mark you as voted, and then you go to another one, it's already going to say that you voted, and then you'd have to vote provisionally if you think that you really need to vote again. And then we're going to turn it over to the DA after that. But that is a good question. That's how, and we do it already in early vote. And we did it we had a branch deal during the school election, so we had it then also because we had several places open at one time. And but that's how it's going to happen. Very good question. All right, thank y'all.
Thank Well, I can see that would be a benefit to a lot of people that vote. Because I've worked in one of the precincts, and we've had a lot of people show up at that precinct, and they're at the wrong one. So, eliminate that problem, which I think would be good. We've got a few announcements we need to make. Remember last month when we had Jim Logan make our presentation about why I should get involved? Remember this we passed out, and there's a very great presentation. And is offered to do a follow-up. Jim, you want to come up for a minute and talk about it? We've got this room set up for next Tuesday night at 6 o'clock. We had several people that expressed interest in doing some follow-up work on that. So,
yeah, in essence, for everybody that saw the presentation last week or last time, what it was about is, okay, so everybody kind of talks about all the problems, but what do we do about it? So I kind of put together an outline of a strategy to attack the problems and kind of work as a group so that we could divide the elephant up into small pieces. And so next Tuesday at 6:30, same time in this place, if everybody's interested, get together. We'll kind of talk about, provide some educational background on some of the principles, and then we'll talk about some of the issues and decide as a group which are some of the more important issues, and we'll start attacking those and kind of go down the path of seeing if we can be effective as well as and get some things done, and start focusing on maybe at the local level and things that we can control, and then move on from there. So I look forward to anybody that wants to come out and participate, and we'll go from there.
Thank you, sir. You know what, that's always been my problem, is I want to do something, but I don't know what to do. You don't know how to make that first step. So I think this would be a great time to get the instructions from our guy here. He's exceptionally smart, and really put on a good program for us last time. Now, we met today with a gentleman from Eastland, and they do a program called Christian Voters League. It's zeroed in primarily for pastors of churches and their wives and politicians, and then some other people too, because lo and behold, Randy and I got to go to a couple of them. And I'm the farthest thing from a pastor than anybody you've ever seen. So maybe they thought I was their material they needed to be there to work on. But anyway, we met today in a preliminary talks that they're going to do this here in Granbury. So we're really excited about it. They're zeroing in on trying to do this in July, which is a short period of time to put a program together to have 500 or 600 people to attend. So it's a great program. If you get an invitation to this, the pastors will be getting an invitation. There'll be some other people that will be getting invitations. If you get an opportunity to go to this, well, I would volunteer to go because it is great. Now, one of the things that we took away from these meetings was, and what they talk a lot about, is in the church, they're trying to get the pastors of the churches to stand up behind the pulpit and talk about some things that they're allowed to talk about, that they're afraid to talk about. So they're trying to encourage these guys to not be cowards, and to say, you can do this. You can register people to vote in your church without violating anything. So with us, we've been talking about this for the last couple of months about our program. What we're trying to start is called Christian Voters League. And we talked about this last time also. And we're going to do this. This is what we talked about here. The premise of it is that we get all the churches in the county involved, and there's about 50 to 60 churches here in the county. So what we'd like is we'd like to have, all of us here don't go to the same church, so, and that's cool. So we have an opportunity for people of all the different churches, if you would, to step forward, get yourself registered to vote, and then talk to your pastor about this. And we would talk to the pastors too about setting this program up, setting a table up. One of our guys, Don Meisinger, is drawn some graphics up about the tablecloths we'd like to have on the table. It's very attractive with a big cross on it. And then to get the voter registration pack, and then work these churches and register Christians to vote, because we need voting. We need our Christian people out voting. So that's what this is about. So we want you guys to think about it. If you haven't attended the class to be able to register people to vote, please consider that. And if you can't make that class on the 20th, 5th, you can go to the annex and go to her office, and she can do the same thing there at a later time. But it's very important that we do this, because we've got an exciting political campaign coming up, and we need to get our guys out voting and getting involved. Now, you see our jars here on the table. The last time y'all were here, we passed out these jars. This is my candidate's kit. Remember what this was about? Saving $25 a month. Randy was supposed to have brought ours with us because it's got money in it. These look kind of like they got dust in them. But, you know, we passed out 32 jars last time, which was, I thought was very good. You know, because we had a lot of husbands and wives here, and I decided maybe what we should do is we should split them up and give each one a jar. So, but anyway, if we can do this, we do it for a year. We've got, what about $250 in there or so? And then a candidate, if we selected one candidate, we could get behind, would have a nice little chunk of money to say, all right, guys, this is what we want, this is what we're interested in, this is what we can do, and this is the amount of money we can bring to your campaign. If you don't want to do it that way, then you can select your own, who you want to support, and you've got a little money to go. And believe me, if you're donating money to these campaigns, they're going to listen to you. And surprisingly, the amount of money we're talking about, the $250, is a really nice donation to these people's campaign. You know, a lot of money that's donated to them is in $20, $30, $40. So $250 sounds pretty good. So if you don't have a jar and you want one, you know, that'll say, don't leave home without it. Don't leave home without taking the jar home with you tonight. So we'd like to get out of here in your hands being filled with money. And the second part of it is, we were out at Cisco because we've got a tea party out there we're working with and encouraging them. We took some jars out there with us to show them what we were doing, and the man that presented Brett, that presented this idea to us here a couple of months or so ago, was there. So we took him a jar, and you cannot believe the emails we get from him about he's going all over the state with this jar and showing it to people and encouraging them to do this. And he told us, we sent Rena an email, and he said, you cannot believe how this is being received throughout the state. This little idea, and it was his idea to come up with it, but taking the jar and so you have something visible, it's very important that we do. Now, knowing me, I opened my big mouth up out there and was telling them about it, told them where we got the jars and so on, and we gave them out. And so I challenged them. I said, we gave out 32 jars. What are you guys going to do? And one of the guys at the back of the room when the meeting was over, he says, we accept that challenge. We're going to beat you. I said, no way. No way. But anyway, we've been challenged. I've challenged him. He came right back at me. It's just good. It's good friendly competition. But we want to do this, and we'd like you to participate in it. So that gets to the candidate's kitty. That's $25 a month going in the jar, which I think is great. Now, there's something coming up in Stephenville. There's a Lincoln Reagan dinner. This will be on the March 20th. And there's a contact person by the name of Lee Barlow. I've got his phone number here. It's, do you know what day that is?
What day?
Yeah.
It's on Friday, I think.
Friday, you think? Okay. Raphael Cruz will be their featured speaker. And believe me, he is worth driving most anywhere to listen to this man speak. If you haven't heard him, please do. If you have, you know it's a real blessing to listen to him. The cost of this is...
It's $65 a piece. That's your dinner and whatever else they have planned. And if a couple is $120.
Okay. $65 each, or $120 for a couple. We have right at this particular time, I think, 8, 10, 12 people that have already told us they wanted to go. What we'll do, if you like, we'll get some paper over here, and y'all want to write this man's name and phone number down if you're interested in going. And I hope several of you would like to go, because it'd be a night you'd enjoy. And that's going to be the cost of it. And then you just have to contact this man, this Mr. Barlow, and make arrangements to however you want to pay for your tickets. But encourage you to do this, because it'll be a fun thing. You'll enjoy it. We've been to several of these over Glen Rose, and you'd be surprised how many of your local politicians attend these. So you can stand toe to toe with them and visit them. And we got acquainted with, I can't tell you how many different ones that we've got acquainted with at these. So it's very informative, and it's good for you, and it's good for these politicians to know you're watching. I'll be watching you, isn't that right, Randy?
Was that on the 25th?
20th. 20th. All right. If you have any questions about this, we'll just come to us after the meeting's over with, and you can get the name and number and so on, and jot it down and take it home with you. So at this time, I've said all I need to say. Randy, you want to come forward?
I always have fun introducing Cathy. It's always fun to introduce your friends when they're going to speak. How many of you have heard Cathy speak here? Yeah. We were laughing at dinner, for those of you that weren't here when she spoke last time. It was July. We had 165 people here, and the air conditioner went out. And Cathy had on a two-piece suit. Anyway, we did just fine, and we learned a lot. And Cathy is president of Texas Eagle Forum. That's a statewide organization of lots and lots of people. How many, what's the membership now?
Probably 8 or 10,000.
8 or 10,000. So, and they have wonderful literature, and you can get on their mailing list, help support them if you like. But Cathy, I've known her for a long time. I really admire her because she uses her own money to visit the United Nations meetings wherever they are. She, while we were having dinner tonight, I said, "Why do you do this? That's a lot of money." And she said, so that our conservatives will really know what's happening in the United Nations. So we really appreciate you, Cathy. Thank you so much for driving down from Dallas to do this for us. So she's going to talk about her last trip to the UN, which was in Peru. So it's all yours, Cathy.
Many of you are on the Texas Eagle Forum mailing list. Oh, okay. Well, it's not a problem. But any of you who are not, please feel free to sign up. We love to start communicating with you, and I learn from everyone I visit with. So thank you so much for coming out. I think that this is a very brave crowd because it's so cold out and you're here anyway. So thank you for making this commitment to come this evening. And Lima, Peru is a lovely city, and you'll see some pictures as we go along. And it's really amazing because after I go one place, I like to keep that town in my iPhone so that when I'm checking weather locally, I can see, well, in Doha, Qatar, it's 85 right now. In Lima, Peru, it's about the same every day. It's like 73 every day during the day, and it'll maybe get down to 60 at night, and you can sleep beautifully with just a window open. So it is a lovely place as far as the weather is concerned. But it was very interesting going to this meeting, as you see on the banner across Lima, COP20. What does that mean? COP is the Conference of the Parties. The UN loves alphabet soup. So the meetings that I attend, the ones that I have been tracking since 1997, deal with climate change. And you will see throughout this presentation why that is such an important meeting for us as Americans. But this was a meeting at an Army barracks. I thought that was a very interesting place for them to host a meeting. And then they set up big tents. And as they are trying to get us to stop using electricity and thinking that we can have windmills or that we can have solar energy only, which of course neither one is dependable, and both are more expensive than using natural gas and water, as we use electrical producing dams or coal-fired plants, which Obama, of course, is committed to shutting down, or if you want a coal-fired plant, we'll bankrupt you. That's his promise to us as Americans. So the tents were not cooled adequately, and it was really funny to see all these environmental wackos migrating to one source of cool air. So they're hypocrites. Enough said about that. But it was fun in that way. This is the secretary, the executive secretary of the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change. The UN Framework of a Convention on Climate Change is a treaty in UN speak, and that is the climate change treaty that was signed in Rio de Janeiro by George H.W. Bush, and then ratified that same year by the U.S. Senate. So we are part and parcel as Americans of this treaty. And Christiana Figueres, the executive secretary in Doha, Qatar, just 2 years ago, made a very bold statement. What is occurring here, not just in Doha, but in the whole climate change process, is the complete transformation of the economic structure of the world. It should happen much quicker, but it cannot happen overnight. So, if we have a president who is fundamentally transforming America, and we have the United Nations who is boldly going out to complete transformation of the economic structure of the world, this should be a big deal. Some of you may have heard of a gentleman by the name of Christopher Monckton. He worked in the Maggie Thatcher administration, and I will never forget coming out of the press conference when she proclaimed this so boldly and telling him what I just heard, and his jaw dropped. So even someone who is steeped in the climate change issue, understands what it's all about, couldn't believe that this woman made such a bold statement. But you see her down here at the right and up here at a press conference at the meeting in Lima. The International Panel on Climate Change is the entity that the Framework Convention on Climate Change refers to as being the authority. So before every UN meeting, you'll see that the IPCC, the International Panel on Climate Change, comes out with a new declaration. Global warming is getting worse. We're going to have to work quickly. We're going to have to make stronger commitments. Every nation around the globe is going to have to buy into this. And, well, let's find out who the IPCC is first. First of all, it does no research. So how in the world can it be an authority on anything? They don't do any research. All they do is assess what is quote-unquote scientific, technical, and socioeconomic information about the risk of climate change. But when they talk about the risk, they go under the assumption that it is caused by human activity. Now, climate change is something that has happened since the beginning of time. The climate changes. No one denies climate change. No one does. But they changed it to climate change after 1998 when the globe quit warming because they couldn't call it global warming anymore. So now whenever there's a storm, whenever there's a heat wave, whenever there's a drought, whenever there's a snowstorm, whenever there are record cold, it's all caused by climate change, and we're causing it because we breathe out. That is the big deal. CO2, carbon dioxide, the air that you breathe out, and we'll see more about that in another slide. So this IPCC was just created in 1988, and was created, of course, by two UN organizations. One, the World Meteorological Organization, the other one, the UN Environment Program. And if you know anything about the UNEP Environment Program, it is also run by a bunch of environmental whackers. These people, including the Secretary General of the United Nations, literally get into Earth worship more than they do in scientific study. And thinking that the Earth is sacred, thinking that we've got to save it, and going after things as though their own lives depend upon it. Well, the IPCC chairman is this Indian man that you see in these two different pictures. And I want to make a big deal out of this because just this month in Reuters, this chairman was forced to resign due to a sexual harassment complaint. So, not only do we have the UN creating its own scientific body that doesn't do any scientific research, but it's headed by a man who is a sexual harassment person who has resigned due to that. So, already you know, just at the first couple of slides, follow the money. That's what this is really all about. Why? Because as the chairman of the Standing Committee on Environment and Public Works, James Inhofe, U.S. Senator, said, once you control carbon dioxide, the air we breathe out, the same air that is emitted when fossil fuels are burned, once you control carbon, you control the world. It's that simple. So why did they go after global warming? Why did they go after climate change? Why did they go after CO2? Because if you control carbon, you control the world, as Senator Inhofe so succinctly stated. And this is how they hope to do it. They have created what they call a Green Climate Fund. That fund was created just in 2009. It's supposed to raise $100 billion annually. But folks, they're really embarrassed because they really only have about 20 or 30 million in it. They can't seem to get people to just cough that up. So what they want to do is create a tax. Only the UN already has the branches of government. It has the executive branch and it has the judicial branch. It's lacking though the ability to tax. And so the legislative branch are the meetings that they have around the globe and all of the different meetings everywhere. So they want a taxing ability to afford their agenda. Their agenda is best described as the watermelon. It is green on the outside, using the environmental issue, but it's Marxist red on the inside. Who else would be calling for social, economic, and environmental equity? Now, everybody knows that economic equity is a Marxist ideal. Not only is it a Marxist ideal, it's a utopian ideal, and it's impossible. It will never happen. Because there's always going to be the ruling elite who take $2.5 million vacations, as Barack and Michelle just did. And there's going to be the working class. Those of us who are peons to these people. They hate us with a passion, and they want more. So, they want a global tax. The tax would be on this carbon dioxide. That would be their ideal. That is their main agenda. Or maybe on international monetary transactions or on international transport. And already, if you fly through the UK right now, you're already paying a tax on the emissions caused by your jet. So I can get a free ticket but have to spend over $1,000 on a tax. Why? Because that jet plane is burning fossil fuels. Can you see a windmill running that jet? I mean, these people are not even logical. But it's amazing how teachers and classrooms are teaching this as fact. And our kids and our grandkids believe it because it's brainwashing. So, it's so important to the world that the IPCC, now that you know that you got a sexual pervert as its ousted leader just this month, won a Nobel Peace Prize in 2007 with none other than Al Gore. Al Gore. For what? Well, oh, and also that lecture, that Nobel lecture was given by the IPCC chairman. For their efforts to build up and disseminate greater knowledge about man-made climate change and to lay the foundations for the measures that are needed to counteract such change. Well, it's not happening, so how are we going to do anything about counteracting it? It's not happening. But Nobel seems to have really lost its way. You won't have forgotten this one in 2009. None other than Barack Hussein himself won a Peace Prize as well for his extraordinary efforts to strengthen international diplomacy and cooperation between peoples. How's that working for us? Well, his job approval rating for foreign policy, and this is as of this month, CNN said, well, he used to have a 41% approval rating. He only has, and now he has a 57% disapproval rating. CNN, and then Gallup, 36% approval and 59% disapprove. Fox News, a 39% approval and 53% disapprove. So his ratings are not very good on foreign policy. Maybe the Nobel people should have looked a little bit before they leapt on this guy. What happened new in Lima, Peru? Because they have these annual conflabs where all of these heads of state get together and make big decisions. So what was new from Lima, Peru? Well, this December, they're going to meet in Paris, France. This December. And at that point, the United Nations will propose that nations measure greenhouse gases and report them to the bureaucrats of the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change. Now, the U.S. endorsed this measuring called INDCs, or Intended Nationally Determined Contributions. Now, once they are measured, will it not be very easy for the UN to say, we have the criteria we need in order to assess a tax? You either belly up to the bar one way or we'll get you another way. That's really what the UN is about in this entire agenda. But there is a big divide, I think, and I think that that is a perfect picture to show a giant divide between people who are free and those who are not. The Secretary of State was there. He has been in every major UN meeting since the 1992 meeting, which is where he met his wife-to-be, was in Rio de Janeiro, John Kerry. And he's been being introduced here by Todd Stern, who is the head of the American delegation under Obama at these UN meetings. And here's something that he said in Peru that I think is just very interesting. That climate change is not just another policy issue, but a global threat equal to terrorism, extremism, epidemics, poverty, and nuclear proliferation. How sound is this man? I think that we're looking at someone who is mentally and emotionally unstable.
Yes.
We have several of those.
We have several of those, yes, we do. So, here are the facts being presented at a press conference. The gentlemen up here are men that I worked with at this meeting in Lima, Peru. On the left is Mark Moreno, in the center is Craig Rucker, and then Walt Cunningham, who was the Apollo 7 astronaut. And we'll see a little bit more about him in the next slide. But before moving on also, I have to show you up in the top right-hand corner that Walt Cunningham, this former astronaut, is hang gliding off of a mountain in Cusco, Peru. Then I'm getting my picture taken with him there. But he attends these meetings as a guest of one of the groups that Craig Rucker leads in order to, as an informed scientist, speak logically and truthfully about this whole threat. The Earth's atmosphere is a layer of gases has a layer of gases surrounding it that are retained by its gravity. It contains roughly, and look at the numbers here, 78+% nitrogen, almost 21% oxygen, 0.93% argon, and look at how much carbon dioxide is in the air that we breathe. Only 0.038. So we're having all of this over how much of the air that we breathe? I mean, this is really laughable that they're targeting carbon dioxide. But why? Because remember what Senator James Inhofe said, you control carbon, you control the world. And that's what they want to do, is control the world economy. So that is a very important scientific note. More about Walt Cunningham. He said at this press conference that you just saw, the UN sells climate change to the public who is not scientifically trained and does not understand when you should accept data and when you should not accept data. These people are politically driven, financially driven. That is his conclusion about what the United Nations is doing. And as you see in the top left-hand corner here, the 3 astronauts that were on that Apollo 7, and Cunningham's name is on that logo. Climate change is caused primarily by 3 different things. Primarily. There are books written about climate changing because of sun activity. The sun is the major factor here. Who's going to control the sun? You think the UN is going to go up and snuff it out if it gets too hot? I mean, this is nonsense. Nobody's going to control the sun. It has an 11-year cycle. It's going to stay on its 11-year cycle. And no man, no amount of breathing out, no amount of any engine's carbon dioxide emission, no power plant's emissions are ever going to change it. Not one nuclear reactor. Nothing is going to change until God changes that sun activity. Other small things that we're not going to do anything about. As a matter of fact, the Bible even talks about winds. They come from somewhere, they go to somewhere. And no one controls them. Everybody knows that. Ocean currents. So much of our weather is driven by ocean currents. And again, we can't do anything about it. But anybody who scuba dives, you know you'd better fear those ocean currents. Anybody who commandeers a ship knows you had better fear those ocean currents. So that is what changes the weather, not breathing out. Photosynthesis is another thing that is very good for us to understand. Most of us learned in elementary school, but let's just look very clearly at what this is. Carbon dioxide is not hazardous to your health. You breathe it out, and then it gives the molecules of what happens when water and carbon dioxide then produce sugar plus 6 molecules of oxygen. The more carbon dioxide that is produced, what happens? More plant growth, more trees and plants grow. And then the more they grow, what do they emit when they take in the carbon dioxide? Oxygen. So it's a perfect cycle, and we don't have to be afraid, and yet we are trying to control every person, every place on this earth by making them believe a lie that man, by breathing out, is producing climate change. It is absolutely bizarre. Money-driven, definitely. Here are a couple of meteorologists who speak out, and you've got the website there if you're interested in looking it up. A very clear statement. You know, most of meteorological research is funded by the federal government. And boy, if you want to get federal funding, you better not come out and say human-induced global warming is a hoax, because you stand the chance of not getting funded. That's the bottom line. That's why we even see today, and I can tell you, Walt Cunningham was not at all happy. The American booth set up, and it's always the biggest booth at all of these conventions, was showcasing a lot of NASA. And he was very put out by this, knowing that global warming is a hoax and that they are using NASA. And of course, it's a government entity, and so if NASA is going to be funded, guess what? They're going to have to produce these lies that climate change is caused by man. There is another man who is hyper-criticized online. Every person who criticizes or is a skeptic or is one who says the verdict is still out. It doesn't matter how you parse your words. You're going to be really taken on by this world of people who want this access of carbon dioxide control to create a tax to control everybody everywhere on the face of the earth. And Ian Plimer said this: over the past 250 years, humans have added just 1 part of CO2 in 10,000 to the atmosphere. One volcanic cough can do this in a day. One of the points made also is that one volcanic eruption has produced more carbon dioxide than all emitted by men burning fossil fuels and breathing out combined. So, however you look at it, whether this, is totally accurate or not, I think those who are naysayers, those who are controlling the money, those who have a political agenda, are much less trustworthy than our scientists who make statements like this. And so I tend to believe what Mr. Clymer says. One man that I have met and is very accomplished, very accredited, is Dr. Roy Spencer. Written a number of books, this one, Blunder. He's a climatologist. He does research. He's a research scientist at the University of Alabama and the U.S. science team leader for the Advanced Microwave Scanning Radiometer flying on NASA's Aqua satellite. You remember when Al Gore said, we're going to set up a satellite and we're going to study the rising and the lowering of the seas, and we're going to watch the temperature. Well, it's all coming back at him because it's not showing that the seas are rising, nor are the temperatures rising. So it's all coming back at him, and the man who's overseeing this is a scientist, a climatologist, very well accredited, Dr. Roy Spencer. So they love to hate him too now, even though he has all of these credentials. And what he said on his recent blog is, I am growing weary of the variety of emotional, misleading, and policy useless statements like most warming since the 1950s is human caused, or 97% of climate scientists agree humans are contributing to warming, unquote. Neither of those statements leads to the conclusion we need to substantially increase energy prices and freeze and starve more poor people to death for the greater good. And that is what is happening. The people who are hurt the most by this agenda are the poor people. Yet, Dr. Roy Spencer says, that is the direction we are heading. It makes no sense, but that is what we are doing. Ice is not shrinking. There is a cycle because of the winds, because of the sun, and because of the ocean currents. There is a cycle. But right now, look at the amount, as of February 18, of ice on the Great Lakes. Is this global warming to you? It's increasing. That's not warming to me. The current northern hemisphere sea ice area, look at it. And look at the cycle. You can see about an 11-year cycle, right? Sun activity. It is connected. And yet we are denying it. Why? The coverage today stands at 93% of Lake Superior is covered with ice. 93%. Exactly 1 year before that, believe it or not, was only 15%. So these things happen in cycles, and it's not caused by you breathing out. Stories about declining ice in small portions of Antarctica, yet the media rarely, if ever, mentions that ice is accumulating over a larger area of East Antarctica, and that the continent as a whole is gaining snow and ice mass. There you go. We're not losing it, folks. We're not losing the ice. Not that I really care a whole lot. Sea levels are also not rising. As a matter of fact, they're lowering. And the way that NASA had to state it, because Barack Hussein Obama is still the president in the White House and controlling their money, oops, this NASA satellites detect a pothole on the road to higher seas. They wouldn't say that the sea level is going down. They just said that it hit a pothole. How smart is this? The sea levels dropped in 2010 and 2011, latest numbers I can find online today. There is no global warming since 1998. Panic is over, he's going to live. That's the cute little polar bear. The Earth orbiting satellites at the University of Alabama at Huntsville, and that is again, the leader of that project is Dr. Roy Spencer. You've just met him. show that there are decreasing temperatures over the last decade, with present temperatures barely above the 30-year average. We're not experiencing global warming. That's why now, whenever there's a snowstorm or any other kind of happening, they call it climate change. Well, yeah, of course, the climate changes, it always has. So what is the global plan? At the United Nations, it's been laid out just over these last few years, and I want to point to one in the future, two in the future. In 2013, Christiana Figueres called for a significant number of meetings and workshops to prepare a new agreement. The United Nations wants a new agreement. If you will remember, in 1997, there was a legally binding treaty produced by the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change. It put a cap on the amount of carbon dioxide that could be emitted by a nation. Al Gore flew over to over there in order to establish the Kyoto Protocol, saying that the United States would go 7% below 1990 levels in our carbon emissions, which said that we aren't going to increase in population, we're not going to increase any industry, we're going to go backwards, which means that your standard of living is too high and you're going to have to cut it back. That's what they're after. They are so Marxist as to think that our standard of living is too high, and so we're going to have to cut back our standard of living if the poor around the world are ever going to be able to climb out of poverty. Nothing could be further from the truth. Nothing could be further from the truth. But that is Marxist ideology. So in 2013, they had all these meetings, in preparation for a new agreement. 2014, Ban Ki-moon, the Secretary General of the United Nations, who's a Buddhist, by the way, earth worshiper. I mean, these are holy things to them, trees and rocks. He convened leaders to meet in New York City. Why? For political pressure for a 2015 deadline. So, brings us back, also there was a People's Climate March, as well as over 100 leaders meeting in New York City. But there were People's Climate March all over the world. And folks, let me tell you how that happens. You've got World Wildlife Fund, you've got Greenpeace International, you've got these radical groups that get money, just like what you're seeing Farrakhan and some of these other guys get. They're paid off. It's money to keep them quiet. So they're very rich, these different organizations. They're very rich because then they can organize things like the People's Climate March. Now, how many people do you really think are that worried about the climate and thinking that we are the problem because we breathe out? It was all contrived because these people are so well funded they can do it. They can pull it off. So in December, in Paris, France, they're going to meet again, and their goal is a new legally binding treaty. They are now adding a new word, a new legally binding universal treaty. They want every nation to buy into it. But I have got a swamp for you in the midst of any desert around this globe if you believe that it would be universally applied equally. There's always going to be that ruling elite up there who are going to have every bit of energy they want. It's you and me who have too high a standard of living. You got a refrigerator and a freezer, you're going to have to get rid of one of them. Pick which one. You got an air conditioner, you know what, you can turn that off. You can deal with a little heat. You can sweat a little. Oh, the winter is too cold for you? Well, sit out by a fire. Warm your toes. You know, I mean, this is what they want. This is what they want. And then by 2020, this new legally binding treaty would come into effect. I'm concerned that these INDCs, this measurement of carbon emissions that they want reported to the UNFCCC, are going to be the measurements that they want to use to assess a taxing amount on every nation. Not just to say you're going to have to cap your carbon emissions, but to also say, now you've got to belly up to the bar with the money. We want the money. Where's the money? So that is what is going on in the global plan. What can we do about it? Never forget what Senator Inhofe said. Control carbon, control the world. It's not about climate change. It's about controlling capital. Ask your congressman to author a bill to cut off all UN funding until the Green Climate Fund and the global tax scheme is eliminated. Okay, every time you say, let's get the U.S. out of the UN, sounds great. But folks, when you see how much this maniacal monster is entrenched in places around this globe, I think that that is really a dream. I'd love to see it happen. But why not take one bite out of that elephant and just say, how about a bill to cut off all funding until the Green Climate Fund and the global green tax scheme is eliminated? I think that we should do that before it's too late. How about 2016 politics? How is this all going to play out? The climate change scheme must be a prominent issue throughout the presidential campaigns. And we should expect our government officials to protect our enviable standard of living from the radical environmentalists. I don't think that those are too hard of things to ask for. This is the last slide. And I think that this medieval witchcraft is a really appropriate thing, stated in Lima, Peru by Mark Moreno with Climate Depot. He said, the UN is first and foremost political, and they have bastardized science to achieve a political end. The head of the IPCC, member Pachauri, that has now been deposed, said they are at the beck and call of governments. So their whole mission is to enrich the UN. They are using that to claim that they can alter global temperature and storminess and weather events many decades to 100 years into the future. And the UN does not have that power. That is reserved for medieval witchcraft. I mean, it really is, I think, a most appropriate statement to claim that you can change the weather by not breathing out or not having so many people on the earth. Population control is huge to these people, to breathe out and thereby control the climate. With that, I would love to hear your questions. Yes, sir.
I don't have a question. I just like to put some dollars and cents to this.
Mm-hmm.
In their country, we're spending $22 billion a year to support this climate change or global warmth or whatever they want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
Al Gore, when he got out of vice presidency, he was worth $2 million.
Mm-hmm.
Today he's worth $100 million, and that is gained through his preaching this climate change and investing in these green companies.
Great point. And for those of you in the back of the room, let me repeat some of this, not as well as what you did. But Al Gore left office with like a couple $1 million of value to his name. Today, he is very wealthy. Let me add one other thing. The executive secretary, Christiana Figueres, who's from Costa Rica, her father and her brother are both former presidents of Costa Rica. Her brother today is deeply invested in green energy. Guess what happens if Big Sis, or Little Sis, gets this thing done globally in December in Paris, France? He becomes wealthier than anyone can touch. Yes, sir. Yes.
I had a quick question. I saw something where the EPA and the Ag Department are working on water credits.
Mm-hmm.
Is that tied to this whole climate change UN agenda? Is that tied back to the UN in some way?
Absolutely, all the environmental things are, because they will call, they have many different facets that are going on, but you'll put them under three major categories. They call it sustainable development. Sustainable development is absolute equity or justice.
Social justice.
Environmentally, socially, and economically. When you call for economic equity, it's utopian, it's Marxist. Environmental equity, the same thing. Social equity, the same thing. So they will hit every area of your life. There is not an area that is not going to be controlled. If you control carbon, you control the world. Inhofe has it right here. He wrote a book on that too, by the way. So, yes, great point. Yes?
Would you address Agenda 21 and how it ties in?
Yes, Agenda 21 came out of the same meeting in Rio de Janeiro in 1992. There were 3 treaties, and then there was a soft law document. They're talking now about the possibility of a soft law document coming out of Paris. It's even worse if it's a soft law document instead of a treaty. Why? Because a treaty would require 2/3 approval by the U.S. Senate. If it's a soft law document, all you need is an executive order, and that's what Bill Clinton gave us in 1993, the President's Council on Sustainable Development. Now it's embedded in every federal agency, and all the strings, every time every state, county, or city government applies for a grant from the federal government, the strings are attached to it to implement Agenda 21, which is sustainable development. Again, sustainable development is Marxism. It is social, environmental, economic justice. So sometimes they'll talk, well, we got to have this because we got to have social justice. We got to have that because we have to have economic justice. And people are confused because they're using words that they think that they understand what they mean, but they don't know what they mean under the Marxist rhetoric. Americans are spoiled, but we better wake up before it's over. Yes, ma'am?
You were just talking about the treaty, the 2015 treaty.
Yes.
You talking about?
Yes.
And I'm understanding too that 2/3 of Congress, or the Senate, I believe it is, has to vote on that and approve it.
Right.
So how is the 2015 treaty?
Great question. The 2015 treaty, if it is a treaty and not a soft law document, then it would have to be approved by 2/3 of the U.S. Senate. Depending on who wins the next presidential election, remember it was George H.W. Bush that got us into this UN Framework Convention on Climate Change. They stick Jeb Bush down our throats, giving us no choice for president, as we have not had the last few elections. Who's to say he's going to stop it? So even if we had a Republican, what good is that going to be? So it should have Senate approval, 2/3 Senate approval. It shouldn't be as easy as it was in 1992 for George H.W. Bush, now that we understand what climate change means. But if it is an Agenda 21 soft law document, then all it takes is an executive order. It's embedded in federal agencies, and it's, forevermore we've got this Marxism imposed on us, but not through our own elected representatives. Not very good news, is it? But we have hope. We have hope because we know the one who put that sun out there, gave it its 11-year cycle, is in total control of our climate changes. And so, we can sleep well without worry. But we also have a responsibility, I think, to understand as much as we can and to influence as much as we can. At every level of government, we can say something. One new state senator has heard me speak more than once on Agenda 21. As a matter of fact, he led a Tea Party, and so therefore he's heard me more than once speak about Agenda 21. And he's got a bill filed that nothing in the state of Texas can embrace Agenda 21. And it is Senate Bill 445 by Bob Hall. Yes. So I'm most hopeful about that. So we don't need to be discouraged. There are things that we can do, and as long as God gives us life and gives us breath, let's do it. Any other questions or comments?
I think moving the UN out of this country would be a best thing.
I think getting the UN out of the U.S. is a great idea.
I think about Mars would be about right.
Well, you have my support on that. I mean, doing away with it altogether. But I'm telling you, if you go now and you see, the military, how, of course, Obama is now got our military to a point where could we even defend ourselves on one major front, much less what we had in the past, too. is what our military was to be prepared to do. And so he's hurting our military, but NATO is increasing. And, you know, one nation is attacked and we all come to their defense. Is it that NATO is going to be the global military? You've got in Nairobi, Kenya, you've got a major facility. Brussels, Belgium, you have a major facility. Paris, France, the FAO, the Food and Agriculture Organization, is situated there. The Green Climate Fund has a new South Korean home. I mean, every dot around the globe, these people are embedded and their tentacles are in there. So a number of years ago, I asked Dick Armey, of course, former majority leader of the U.S. Congress and certainly a fine conservative man, about getting out of these things. And he said, you know, you can get out even of a UN treaty. The problem is, once the tentacles are in there, it's almost impossible to get them all out. So all of this is possible. We should work for all of it. But I'm willing to take it as much as I can get every time I get an opportunity. Thank you. God bless you.
Jerry Allen, tell him thanks for fixing our mic. Do you all get this little newspaper at home? It's the Texas scorecard. If you don't get it, please take one of them. I had Michael send us quite a few, and then you can ask for that to be on your computer, you know, to have it sent to you. Oh, you're going to pass them out?
I'll do it. Right, yep.
If you all haven't heard, haven't seen the video they put out, you should see it. I was in it. It's really a cute video. It's for our legislators. The title of it is, I'll be watching you. And so it's really, really good. I hope you'll take one of these and subscribe to it. They'll send it to your house for free, so if you're not getting it. Also, I need to know, is there anybody here that's in precinct 4 or 6?
Voting.
What precinct are you in? Which one are you in? 4? Is anybody in 6?
Reen, clarify, you're talking about voting precinct 4 or 6, not commissioner precinct 4, right?
No, this is voting. Where you vote?
Well, yeah, voting precinct 4, not commissioner precinct 4.
Right.
Because she said something about her commissioner being in precinct 4, but...
Oh, but you have, I want to know where you live, where you vote, you know. I have a reason for that. If you get home and find out you are, give me a call or send me an email. I understand we have some precinct chairs that are empty, and I can think of nothing better than filling them up with Tea Party people. So, that's all oh, don't forget to take a jar. If you don't have a jar, think about this. How much do you spend a month on stuff? $25 isn't a lot, but if we all can save that much money for a good candidate, we can really have a bunch to give them. And so I hope you all will take one, put it out where you can see it. We do ours at the end of every month. So we hope to have a lot of money. Oh, we did pass that.
Oh,
We're going to pass. We always take donations, and I always hate to ask for money. We were talking about that at dinner. But you know, we have to pay for this building, and do you know, I just found out today, we're going up to $200 a time for us. I'm negotiating, but I don't know if I'm going to work or not. So anyway, we do have expenses, and we hope that change or whatever you've got. If you don't have any, you need some, take some out.
Is there anything that anybody would like to talk about tonight? Too cold? I agree. Well, we had this meeting the other night with some of our members, and we were talking about, you know, it'd probably be just a really good meeting, just to meet and just have an open forum and let people get off their chest what they want to talk about. You know, if you're like I am, you see what's happening out of the White House, where he's just totally trashing the color of our Constitution. And these executive orders are just unbelievable. I get so frustrated that when he comes on television, I turn it off. You know, thankfully, we only have 2 more years on him, but I don't know whether we can stand 2 more years on him.
I'm frustrated with McConnell and Reed.
Right.
No,
Yeah.
And Boehner.
they're gonna sell us down the creek again.
Well, I hope that you're contacting your senators and your congressmen. We called Connolly's office the other day. You know, we'd like to know how they're going to be voting on these things. And we don't feel a great confidence that he's going to vote the way we want him to vote, or what we believe would be the right way to vote. Pardon me. But, you know, it's important that you call your congressman, and not only your congressman, but your state senator and your state rep. If these things are being voted on and you're not clear on how if they're not supporting you and how you feel about these things, they need to know that they're not. So call. We have a young man that sends us an email blast on our iPhone blast, I guess, and he will tell them, please tell Conway to vote no on this and to leave these certain amendments out or whatever. But it's a good, I don't know how many of y'all get this, I think several, because he did take a lot of people's phone numbers. And he said, in fact, I got one from him a couple of days ago. So if you get this, then follow up on it. And if there's something that's just bothering you that these congressmen are doing, let them know. Let them know. We found out that one phone call represents an untold amount of dissatisfaction that's going on out in the territory. And they pay attention. They really pay attention. So, hammer, let them know. That's what we do. And if you have an opportunity, if they come in to the territory, they seem to have a lot of weeks off, and they can get back into the territory. If they have a town hall meeting, go to the town hall meeting. Now yes.
Well, I just want to let everybody know, along those lines, Conway, on his Facebook page, he'll post his town halls like a day before, at very last minute. So if you check his Facebook page, he posts the town hall, so.
Last 2 hours before.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but,
You know, we've had this couple and Mike surprised Conway. They went to Eastland for a town hall meeting. So I thought that was pretty cool. And then I found out later he was going to be in Stephenville, which would have been a whole lot shorter drive, but I didn't know that until it was after it was over with. So pay attention to those and go to them and go with questions. Go with questions.
Afraid to come back to Grandma.
Sure, anybody's time. But anyway, is anybody else got anything they would like to say? Get off your chest tonight. I want to thank y'all again for being here tonight. I really do appreciate it. And I want to thank Cathy for being here in her presentation. Thank you so much. I would say to everybody, be careful going home. Okay? Have a good weekend. Thank you again so much.
All right, thank you.